in Seattle, which finished first in yards allowed and points allowed in back-to-back Super Bowl trips. Now, Quinn will look to fix one of the league's worst units as the Cowboys allowed the most points in franchise history and finished with the 31st ranked run defense in the NFL. We're now joined by former Cowboy Orlando Skendrick. Orlando, give this hire a letter grade for us, please.
I'm going to give it a C+, maybe a B-. Me and Sharp talked about this before. When you get to hiring and giving people jobs based off of what they did in the past, I mean, that's you get into like deep waters. But my biggest thing with Dan Quinn is he's fired several defensive coordinators. He was a defensive-minded coach when he went to Atlanta, and he's most remembered for his meltdowns. Another thing with Dallas, they need to add some pieces. They don't have many secondary pieces. They need some interior defensive linemen, and they can add another linebacker. And I just don't know how much of that he can fix. He likes to play cover 3, and years ago when they brought cover 3 into the league with that match 3 with Seattle, they kind of took the league by surprise with Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Rich Sherman, Brandon Browner, and they just don't have those pieces in Dallas.
I gave it a C also because I don't know if people realize on the team that the guy they just fired a couple of years ago, Chris Richard, was the defensive back coach. He ran the same system. Actually, this is Gus Bradley's system.
It is.
And
I agree. Thank you for saying that, because he originated.
Right.
Yes.
Well, no, if you want to go back further, it's not Gus Bradley's system.
But Gus brought it with cover 1.
System.
Gus played the cover 1, what we used to call it, a little older. We called it cover 1 lurk. They call it cover 1 robber. And as you mentioned, you had Sherm, you had Cam, you had Earl Thomas. I just want to know who in Dallas is Bobby Wagner. Which one of the middle guys is Bobby Wagner?
Jalen Smith is.
He might got the same number, but that's where it stops. And that's the thing that you have to understand. Because you see, and if they play well, that means they underperform under Chris Richard. And if they don't, I just like O was saying, Dan Quinn, Skip, he had a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. And you look at this, he had a 19-point lead against the Cowboys. He had a 17-point lead against the Bears. He had a big lead. He had a lead against the what? At some point in time, now, as O said, he's a defensive-minded coach, and his defenses keep giving up big leads. The same thing that you guys said about Mike Nolan. Last time Mike Nolan was the defensive coordinator, his teams did bad. He got a job.
And by the way, that was also in Atlanta.
Dan Quinn got a job based off of what? That was many years that he was the coach in Seattle, and those guys were in their prime. That's a prime Sherm. That's a prime Earl Thomas. That's a prime Cam Chancellor and Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. We ain't got none of that there.
We can take it a step further. They also had Chris Clemens, who was, he was great at what they asked him to do. They had Brandon Mebane, they had Red Bryant playing that strong side defensive end. You have to have big defensive linemen. If you want to play a one-gap defense, Sharp, Skip, you know this, you covered it. You want to play a one-gap defense, everybody got to do their job.
You got to have hell raisers.
Yeah.
So, Orlando, before we move on, who originated this defense? You didn't finish your point before Gus Bradley.
Kiffin. It's an evolution of Monty Kiffin. Monty Kiffin brought the cover 2 into the league.
No.
No one could figure it out.
But that's more Tampa.
You talking about Tampa, too. Yeah.
Oh, but Monty gave Gus Bradley his first job. Monty was the one who recommended Gus Bradley get the job for Pete Carroll. And then he took from playing cover 2, and then he started to use that 2-shell safety and drop them down and play cover 3. And then they got these big, long defensive backs from Seattle that can play these cover 3 zones because they can close these windows. They don't have those guys in Dallas.
And you can play that coverage when you got Warren Sapp, Derrick Brooks, Simeon Rice. Yeah, you can play a lot. You can play whatever you want.
And actually, everybody knows that Pete Carroll's a defensive mind. When Pete Carroll was with the Jets, he played a little bit of this one lurk, a little bit of this cover 3.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to give this move, as a lifelong Cowboy fan, a C+. I'm going all the way up to plus.
But you gave it a C, though.
And why do I go C+? The only silver lining here is that McCarthy brought in 2 of his ex-assistants who were with him on the defensive side in Green Bay, George Witt Jr. and Jason Simmons. I don't know much about either, but they were 2 of the primary candidates. He wanted to go old. I want to go back to what I knew in Green Bay.
They were terrible on
I'm
defense.
still not sure about Mike McCarthy, what he was doing. You're starting to convince me. I think he was a product of Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre before that. So my point is, At least he didn't get to go back in time to what he knew in Green Bay. At least with Dan Quinn, he has no relationship with Mike McCarthy at all. So at least that's a clean slate. And at least Dan Quinn will come in as the unquestioned head coach of the defense, because he's been the head coach of the defense in Atlanta for what that's worth, and that's not worth very much. From what I know of Dan Quinn, he's a good guy. He's high energy. He's sort of a Pete Carroll clone a little bit, you know, and he loves, his specialty is the defensive line. So they will go back to conventional 4-down linemen. And DeMarcus won't have to be standing up saying, what do I do now? What do I? He will put his hand in the dirt and he will go like he used to go. So will that be an upgrade? Maybe. If they go back to single high, just sort of, go ahead, Orlando. You
can't go anywhere but up. But like, from what I know about Dan Quinn, and I hate to cut you off, Skip, but I just want to give you a little bit of my insight. What I know about Dan Quinn, he's a great, high-energy, positive guy, but I mean, you can be a positive if you want. If you don't have the Jimmys and the Joes, I don't care nothing about your X's and O's.
Okay, so I tweeted immediately when I heard this yesterday, can he bring 2014 Richard Sherman with him? Can he bring Bobby Wagner from 2014? Can he go back in a time machine? Can he get Cliff Averill? Can he get Bruce Irvin? Can he get Michael Bennett? Can he get any of them? Can he get Cam? Can he get Earl? No. We don't have anywhere near any of those guys, right? So where does this go? It's got to be better than Mike Nolan, who I wanted fired at midseason. It was a disaster. It was all-time embarrassment. It was arguably the worst defense in the history of the franchise. A franchise that once upon a time had a defense called Doomsday, long before Orlando played for the Dallas Cowboys. Even Orlando's defenses were... There's one year I made a case that Orlando Scandrick was the MVP of the defense. That's how good it was, that he was dominating. Well, and now this.
You know what I look at, if they're smart, they would draft another corner to go alongside Diggs.
Well, and again, at 10, you got Patrick Surtain, we saw last night. He's pretty good.
I don't know if any safeties are rated that high, but you definitely need to play that defense. You got to have guys that can lock. And if you don't...
The way that defense was built is they built it from the front to the back. So if you look at Sherm, they went and got big, long corners with balls. Their big thing was making you take the long, hard way. And defensive linemen, they were able to draft defensive linemen. And Dallas just hasn't... I mean, they drafted Randy Gregory, and he's finally coming along. But they don't have any interior defensive linemen. They drafted Jalen Smith really high, and he's been up and down. They don't have any safeties. They've shown the inability to draft the safeties. And let's go back to the 2020 draft. It was no purpose of drafting CeeDee Lamb except for trying to be cute.
That's what I told Skip.
No, it's because he's by far the best player on the board.
But Skip,
I got no problem with that.
You didn't need offense. You got to be able to stop somebody.
Okay, but when he falls in your lap at 17, you had him in the top 5 on your board. I'm taking CeeDee Lamb.
Well, Skip, you got enough kids. You don't want any more babies.
Okay.
You should have got you a defensive player, and then you'd have been Skip.
This is a very special baby.
Okay.
It is, but I'm not going to get I can't get a baby when I got another teenage son and I just gave $100 million and Amari Cooper.
Okay, look, I got it. And by the way, Neville Gallimore in the interior, he's going to be a player from the University of Oklahoma. That's when you didn't.
But this is my problem, though, Skip. He's a 3-4 player. You're talking about I need a one-gap guy that can get up and wreak havoc.
Right. You need Aaron. You see, when the defense to be effective.
Okay, Skip, we'll just snap our fingers and get Aaron Donald. Okay.
Well, that's what you need to play that defense.
Maybe Jerry can just go buy him from the Rams in the offseason.
When you tell him, but if you're going to play that style of defense, you need an Aaron Donald. You need a Sapp. Okay. You need a guy that's going to play that under tackle and can go wreak havoc in the backfield.
Okay, we don't have it. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? An even worse story in the NFC East is the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Orlando Scandrick, what did you think of the firing of Doug Peterson, and what does it mean for Carson Wentz?
I think they're trying to do everything to save Carson and save him and get him back mentally. I think they're trying to put all the blame on Doug. Just go back to Howie. I told y'all about Howie, man.
You did.
Howie survived the Andy Reid firing. Chip move him over to the other side. You know, Chip have a little success. As soon as Chip struggled a little bit, he right there in Larry's ear. I told you. And he weasels his way back over to the head coach. He wins. And then they start to struggle, and he does this big press conference about how they're all disappointed and everybody has a part in this. And, you know, he's disappointed. And then Dougie P fired. I think Doug is just